This week on Vaticano, Pope Francis prays for unity among Christians during the week dedicated to ecumenism. Discover why the unity of Christians is necessary and learn what the Catholic standpoint is on this unity. Participate in the second edition of Roman Nights under the theme of Instrument of Peace and travel to the Pontifical Marian Shrine of Pompeii, where art and faith meet. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. On January the 20th, a new dossier was published about cases of sexual abuse in the Church. The almost 2,000-page document gathers together alleged crimes committed in the Archdiocese of Munich, Germany, between 1945 and 2019. In the document, different archbishops' management and guidance during that time are examined in detail.
Dem damaligen Erzbischof Kardinal Ratzinger in Fällen sexuellen Missbrauchs ein Fehlverhalten vorzuwerfen ist.
Among them is Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, who led the Archdiocese of Munich and Freising from 1977 to 1982. During the investigation commissioned by the Archdiocese itself, 261 people accused of abuse were examined. Among these, there were 173 priests, 9 deacons, and 5 catechists. In the pages of the dossier, the experts accused then Archbishop Joseph Ratzinger of negligence in 4 cases of abuse. 2 of these accusations make reference to 2 priests already penally convicted for these crimes and who continued to work in pastoral roles in the Archdiocese for 2 years without receiving any type of sentence from the competent authorities. The 3rd case refers to the hiring of a priest that had previously been convicted of abuses in a foreign country. And finally, the 4th accusation refers to priest Peter H., convicted of molestation in the same archdiocese years before. The experts hold that the then Cardinal Ratzinger knew the case of this priest and, in spite of it, did nothing. For his part, the Pope Emeritus firmly denies these allegations. After the publication of the document, both the Holy See and Benedict XVI himself confirmed that they would attentively examine the dossier, affirming their shared commitment to continue the fight against the plague of abuses in the Church. January the 31st marks the feast day of the patron saint of young people and the founder of the Salesian congregation, St. John Bosco. In Rome, we caught up with the successor of St. John Bosco, Father Ángel Fernández Artime, to learn about the legacy this Italian saint left to the Universal Church.
We are welcoming young people, boys and girls, and sometimes kids, who are abandoned on the streets in so many cities. And we go with a single purpose, to prepare them for life and to help them live a life full of meaning. This is the definition of the Salesians of Don Bosco today.
St. John Bosco started with a small and humble mission in Valdocco, in the north of Italy, and now the institutes of the Salesians of Don Bosco are spread worldwide in over 130 countries, numbering 15,000 institutions. Father Ángel Artime says that this incredible legacy and the birth of the congregation is also a merit of another great saint.
Don Bosco, que nació en el 1815,
Don Bosco, who was born in 1815 and was a young priest in 1841, strongly absorbed the spirituality of Francis de Sales, even to the point that Don Bosco made Francis de Sales' motto, "Give me souls and take everything else," his rule of life. He even had it on a beautiful poster at the entrance of his little office. And all his life, he followed the spirituality, style, gentleness, and optimism of Francis de Sales. He did this to the point that when in 1859, when the first young congregation was started, Don Bosco proposed to a group of boys who had grown up with him, saying, "Why don't you stay with me to take care of and to save the boys who are in the oratory?" And he tells them that we will call ourselves Salesians. He did not say we will call ourselves Boscians, like his last name. No, we will call ourselves Salesians, because Francis de Sales will be the inspiration of our way of being in the midst of the boys.
De nuestro modo de estar en medio de los muchachos.
This year marks the 400th anniversary of the death of St. Francis de Sales, which for Salesians is also a big celebration. Father Ángel Fernández Artime looks to this year with much hope, because the time of pandemic hasn't been easy. Unfortunately, the Institute has lost 187 Salesians in 2 years.
El mundo necesita esperanza.
The world needs hope. It doesn't need empty words. It doesn't need us to sell fluff, but hope with solid reasons to live, to continue trusting in those next to you, and, in many of our cases, to continue believing that God does not let go of our hand.
Para seguir creyendo que Dios no nos deja de la mano.
Hello and welcome to this week's Vaticano updates. Prayers are not the only form of support in the Church. Pope Francis sent more than $100,000 to the Philippines. There, people were gravely affected by a recent typhoon and suffer from the damage and loss. The Holy Father sent the same amount to the thousands of migrants waiting in harsh winter conditions at the border between Poland and Belarus. Maria Chavez and Luis Flores lost their 2 daughters in a car accident days before Christmas. Pope Francis met with them at the Vatican weeks after the tragedy. There he offered them words of consolation, encouraging them to find peace in prayer. Over 360 million Christians continue to face persecution all around the world, according to the Open Doors World Watch list released last week in Rome. The top 3 countries where it is the most dangerous to be a Christian right now are Afghanistan, North Korea, and Somalia. The Holy Father declared a saint from the 2nd century, a universal doctor of the Church. Pope Francis named Saint Irenaeus a doctor of unity during the week of prayer for Christian unity. This highlights the saint's work in bridging the gap between the Eastern and Western churches. Pope Francis challenged companies to see people as the real source of wealth in a meeting with members of the National Association of Building Constructors. He declared human life as the most important asset in the workplace. Meeting with a congregation of the Doctrine of Faith, the Holy Father spoke on the recent changes made to the Code of Canon Law. He reiterated the Church's strong commitment to bringing justice to victims of clerical abuse. Pope Francis conferred the ministries of catechist and lector on lay men and women on the Sunday of the Word of God. He created these offices to remind the faithful of the importance of the Scriptures. They are, however, different to ordained offices which originate in a specific sacrament. Thank you for being with us for this Vaticano update. Andreas Townhauser from Rome.
After the break, learn what Christian unity means through the lens of Catholicism, Anglicanism, and Methodism. Around the world, there are many different denominations of Christianity. Catholicism is the largest, with some of the other major churches being Orthodox, Anglican, and Lutheran. The week prior to the feast of the conversion of St. Paul, Christians gather for a week of prayer to pray for unity. In Rome, the Pope presides over ecumenical vespers at the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls to conclude the week of prayer.
Grazie a tutti voi.
Join our Vatican correspondent, Colm Flynn, who followed the event, focused on discovering whether the unity of Christians is necessary and what the Catholic standpoint is on ecumenism.
Is unity essential in the Church, or is it desirable?
I think it's essential. I think it's something Christians cannot not be concerned about, because unity belongs to the kingdom that Jesus came to establish. It's as essential to that kingdom as peace and justice are. Opening our treasures and realizing how we need to receive from the other.
Father Anthony Currer is an official at the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity and responsible for relations with Anglicans and Methodists.
I think we can't avoid it as Christians. We have to be people who desire unity.
As we from different denominations engage in building bridges of friendship.
Anglican Archbishop Ian Ernest is the personal representative of the Archbishop of Canterbury to the Holy See and director of the Anglican Centre here in Rome.
Warm hospitality was bestowed upon me upon my arrival in Rome at St. Peter's Square on the day that Cardinal Newman, John Henry Newman, was canonized. And the Pope left the procession on that morning. He came directly to me and offered me a very warm hospitality by saying, "Welcome to Rome."
Because that is not just a message to you, that's a message to the Anglican Church.
It's a message to the world.
Across the Tiber, close to Ponte St. Angelo, is the Methodist Church, and Reverend Daniel Morris is the senior pastor here. Do you think realistically the day will come when there will be unity, or do you think it will be more understanding and coexistence? Are they the better words rather than unity across the board?
I think that it's becoming more difficult to be a Christian in Britain, to be a Christian in Europe is becoming more difficult, and possibly, who knows, maybe in the United States that will also happen in time. I think when we're faced with real problems that really threaten our existence, you find in countries where there's a minority of Christians, they work together really well.
That's an interesting point. So when the various denominations are almighty and powerful, that there isn't a great need for each other, but when that power and numbers are diminished, and as you said, your back's against the wall, your existence as a Christian is threatened, maybe that's when you're forced to.
I mean, I think that certainly it focuses your priorities.
Speak the name of Jesus, be sorry for what you've done.
But where is the path leading to? Like at the end, when you have that Christian unity, the journey towards it, well, what would that look like?
The path leads us to understand that we Christians, whose faith is grounded in Christ, have a mission, that are being together so that we can proclaim the love of God. Unity for me is not something in the future, it's something that we can do today.
No matter how much we dialogue and work together, if some of the fundamentals cannot be agreed on, like priesthood, the sacraments, the Eucharist, there could never be full unity within the Christian bodies.
We've got to let the theologians and others to focus on doctrinal issues, and we should be able to establish through friendship, through good relationships and cordial relationships, a pathway for being together.
So you think, even with theological doctrinal differences notwithstanding, there still could be unity?
Of course.
The unity that we seek ultimately will not be uniformity. It will not crush out the individuality of particular Christian expressions, as long as those are compatible with the gospel. We needn't be uniform to be united, but we have to be agreed on the fundamentals, the essentials of faith.
That's an interesting point. Unity, not necessarily uniformity. What do you think the Church, the Catholic Church, could do better on the road to unity? What areas could we be better with our Anglican brothers and the Methodist friends?
I think one of the faults which Catholics have is because we are such a big church, we can feel that we don't really need these other Christian brothers and sisters of ours, you know, that we've got plenty, we've got it all. So what we need to do, I think, is and actually it's particularly incumbent on us because we are the biggest global church and because we have that kind of significant place within the Christian family, to be the ones who start the humility, who start the conversation, who start the willingness to learn from others.
So the Catholic Church almost has to lead the way.
Yeah, it really does, I think. You know, that's incumbent on us.
The ytsync-en Vatican Bureau hosted its second Roman Night on January the 20th in Palazzo Cardinale Cesi, a palace built in the 15th century and a welcoming home for pilgrims wishing to experience Rome's history and beauty. Due to the rising positive COVID-19 cases, the event was hosted online, collecting 16,000 views across 4 different social media platforms. The theme of the panel discussion was inspired by Pope Francis' message on the World Day of Peace, celebrated on New Year's Day.
Peace is both a gift from on high and the fruit of a shared commitment. We can truly build peace only if we have it in our hearts, only if we receive it from the Prince of Peace. But peace is also our commitment. It asks us to take the first step. It demands concrete actions.
But what does that mean for our everyday lives? How can we build world peace on a daily basis?
Please join me in welcoming
ytsync-en Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Stonhauser sat down with 3 experts to find out how we can be instruments of peace. Dr. Claudia Navarini, a moral philosophy professor at the European University of Rome, begins by explaining what peace is.
On the one side, peace is a result, an achievement stemming from a series of moral actions, both on a personal and a social level. And on the other side, peace is a process. It's a continuing work that has to be performed and improved. So it's something which is never ended, never completed.
Thank you very much indeed.
So how can peace be contradictory to itself? Sister Patricia Murray, Secretary General of a Worldwide Institute of Catholic Women Religious, says that peace is a virtue and must be cultivated.
And I think that's one of the things that we as sisters try to do, to actually be bridge builders, to help people to learn about each other. Often our stereotyping and our barriers between one another are built because we really don't know and we've never met one another.
Controversies.
Social media can gravitate towards being one of these barriers of peace, and as the Vatican correspondent for the Wall Street Journal puts it, a figurative battlefield that inhibits peacemaking.
I try to limit what I look at in ways to keep because I find that concentration and calm and peace and even benevolence go together. So I try to limit the time that I spend on certain media, which will remain nameless.
After the 40-minute discussion, the experts concluded that peace can always be found and refined in our work, education, and dialogue, as long as we have a vision of building trust and believing that our differences can enrich each and every one of us. When we return, join us on another travel adventure, this time to discover the lesser-known Marian Shrine in Pompeii. For more than half of its history, the people of ancient Rome worshipped a pantheon of mythological gods, and they offered sacrifices to any pagan deity as they pleased, almost universally accepting gods from every culture and corner of the empire, without fear of affronting their own. Early Christianity was different from almost all other religions. As devout followers of Jesus Christ, they refused to worship false gods, and consequently were marginalized and persecuted for their faith for the first 300 years of the Church's existence. Rome today is a city of ruins from its pagan past, and beautiful basilicas in its Christian present. The same is true across all of Italy, in particular, Pompeii.
This is one of my favorite places to visit in all of Italy.
ytsync-en Vatican's Anthony Johnson is traveling to discover pilgrimage sites with this ancient and modern connection that are also tied to the Vatican. In last week's episode, he took us to Amalfi in search of the tomb of St. Peter's brother, the Apostle St. Andrew. And now we resume our travels with him as our team makes their way from Amalfi to Pompeii to reveal a beautiful, yet often overlooked, pontifical basilica.
I studied ancient Roman history when I was in college. Also, when I was a teenager, I was very passionate about it. When I moved here to come and work, this was a place I really wanted to visit. This is my third time here, in fact, but my first time at this church, believe it or not.
The experience of visiting the Pontifical Shrine of the Blessed Virgin Mary is a great surprise. One immediately notices the bell tower, which harkens the sight and sound of trumpeting angels that revolve around the statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary that crowns the facade. The basilica was completed in 1897. To accommodate the rising number of pilgrims, the interior was expanded from 1 nave to 3 in the year 1939 and can hold up to 6,000 people. Out of all this color and splendor, a humble painting of Our Lady of the Holy Rosary, originally offered as a gift from a convent in Naples, draws our attention. Key figures stand out in the basilica's artwork, in particular Saint Dominic. According to tradition, Our Lady appeared to him in a vision in the year 1214 and instructed him to promote devotion to the Holy Rosary. Near him are shown other saints and recent popes, and in a sequence of images the shrine's founder, Blessed Bartolo Longo. Bartolo Longo's story is a dramatic one. In his early adult years after being raised Catholic, Bartolo fell away from the church and became a satanic priest. Biographers note that his life became full of depression, anxiety, and confusion, and was in desperate need of consolation. Bartolo found it when a good friend introduced him to a Dominican friar, Alberto Redenti, who taught him to pray the Rosary. Visitors today can see artifacts from his house, which has been recreated in the Basilica's museum. Bartolo initiated the Basilica's construction. Its purpose is to promote devotion to the Holy Rosary, and in 1901, Pope Leo XIII consecrated it as a pontifical shrine. The Basilica and the Chapel of the Tomb of Blessed Bartolo Longo are open daily.